Through the Leadership Lens is brought to you by Thompson Autogas. Thompson Autogas is the industry's gold standard turnkey solution for all your autogas needs. From funding to refueling and everything in between, Thompson Autogas is there to support your fleet every step of the way.
Hello and welcome to another Through the Leadership Lens, a podcast presented by the Women in Propane Council. We are your hosts. I am Freddie Riddler.
And I'm Bridget Kidd.
And today we have an exciting guest. We're both excited about this. You may have recognized her from the NPGA Expo Nashville last year. We have the keynote speaker, the leadership forum speaker from last year, Kathleen Quinn Votaw. She is the founder and CEO of Talent Trust. Kathleen, we are so excited to have you on our podcast today. How are you doing today?
I am so excited. Happy New Year to all of you. And I'm excited to be back with my propane friends and participate in this conversation this morning.
Awesome. So we're going to kick off the very first question we always do in our podcasts. What is leadership and what does it mean to you?
Oh, I think leadership is a tricky business, actually. And sometimes people think because you're the best performer of a position, you're automatically a leader. And that is not necessarily the case. So leadership to me is really, and my perspective is a 57-year-old chick. So I've learned a lot over the years. And earlier in my career, I thought a leader had to be a boss, a bossy boss. And there's another word for that I won't use. And that's not true because you don't get the best out of yourself or other people. And so then as I matured as a leader, I realized that loving people is leadership and really understanding what makes them tick, what is important to them and their families is the secret to great leadership because you want to help them achieve their dreams, not your dreams.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Can you tell us, Kathleen, you mentioned, 57-year-old chick, which I can appreciate.
Yes.
What caused you to change your perspective? Were there moments or was it just a series of moments? How did your perspective change from the bossy boss to kind of more loving, nurturing leadership?
Well, it really happened when I became an entrepreneur. When I left big corporate America and I had to be, kind of chief cook and bottle washer, the first in 2003 when I started my company, it was me, myself, and I. And then in 2009, I started bringing on people. But I had the freedom to create an environment that appealed to them. And I became more directly attached to the people who were doing the work for me. And there was less bureaucracy or guidelines or red tape or legalese or blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. We could have real conversations about what was important to everyone involved. And I got closer to my people and I let them teach me. So I'll never forget, there's a woman who worked with me. She was my first W-2 hire in 2009. And her name is Eileen Desch, and she's a lovely gal. She works at Korn Ferry. And she said, seek to understand first. Because a lot of us who are leaders in, senior jobs, VPs, we're driver personalities. And we get all excited and we're pushy and we're extroverted and we get all over people before we stop and listen. Listening is a superpower. If you will just shush a little bit and ask, what is happening in your world that might be affecting your performance? If you have a performance issue, I've noticed, Freddie, Bridget, that something's off. What's going on? And shush instead of attacking. And it's like in our DNA to be aggressive, right? We're drivers, but you have to learn to pull back and seek to understand first. And it's not easy.
So I love that you said that, because in your book,
Mhm.
Dare to Care in the Workplace, I actually have a copy of it. I was brave enough to stand up and answer one of your questions last year. So you gave me a
Yeah.
book. And I wrote it down. I love the part about shutting up and listening. We talk
Yes.
too much. And that was one of my questions. And that's a leadership attribute. And I had to learn that. When I heard you talk about that last year and I read the book, I thought, man, I do talk too much. And sometimes the person I'm talking to doesn't get their story out. And that's what it's all about, is hearing that story.
Yes.
So could you talk a little bit more about other attributes of being a leader? Listening. What else have you seen or learned, or as you went from company to company talking about leadership skills? What other attributes could you share with our listeners and viewers with this podcast?
Absolutely. So listening is key. It's also humility. Yeah, being able to learn from the people who work in the front lines with your customers, um, and being able to truly um, transform yourself for the needs of the customers and the employees, because we're living in a very transformative period of time. Can we all agree that that's happening? It's the most transformative time I've certainly ever experienced, and there's so much uncertainty. So you do not have to be the smartest guy or gal in the room. You actually have, in my opinion, you have to have a power of codifying all of the information from different sources, and collaborating. So, listening, humility, collaboration, um, really truly loving your people. And I don't mean like an inappropriate loving on your people, because that would be bad. But I mean, during the pandemic, and it's on my website, it's one of my most cherished gifts from my team during the crazy 2020-21 situation that we were in. I kept every single employee employed, and many of the propane employers here have smaller organizations, they're family run. It was a hard time for all of us. I have a smaller organization, it's harder, but I kept us all together. We duked it out, and then they sent me a love letter, and it's on my website. If you feel free to post it with the podcast if you so choose.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, you always showed up. You always had your lipstick on. You always had a joke. You cried with us. You didn't have all the answers. I think that's a really important thing, because who did?
Mm-hmm.
And if you fake it, like there's a woman who works with me, Kim Lee. She's been with me for, I don't know, 9, 10 years now. I love her. She is the antithesis to me. She's like, we're yin and yang. She is the super smart sales engineer, very analytical, and I'm like, whoa. And so she said to me, I was asking, what do we do? Are we doing okay? Are we checking in? She said, you know what, Kathleen? I trust you all the time because you're always transparent with us, even in good times and bad. So I'm not worried at all, because I kept checking in. Are you okay? How's everybody? And you've met me. Freddie's met me. Bridget, have I met you in
We have
person?
not. No.
Well, Freddie knows I'm touchy, like I think I hugged him and touched him, and we had just met, so I just wanted to check in with everybody. But transparency is also key. The more you can tell people what's happening, the better off it's going to be, because in the absence of information, people make up their own
Mhm.
stories. And
Mm-hmm.
they're not fairy tales.
Right.
They're usually nightmares.
Kathleen, one question that I would have for you about that, and with this kind of transformational changing time, and I think one of the challenges we observe both within the industry and within our own organization is the diversity of needs
Yes.
across your employment spectrum, right?
Yes.
And I think that's a relatively new phenomenon. I would argue there used to be kind of a set standard of here's what you can expect, here's what we expect, and we all move on. But now you have so many different needs that you want to meet, and you have so many different expectations. How do you look across the kind of breadth and depth of your organization and serve each of those individuals with what they need?
Yeah, it is. It has become harder. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it.
Mhm.
But if we as employers do not meet people where they need to be met, someone else will.
Mhm.
So even though it's tricky, right? We have people who are driving trucks and filling up tanks with propane, right? That's not a work from home job.
Mhm.
Last time I checked, right? Say they got to get in the truck and it's been frigid here where I live in Colorado. It's been negative,
Mhm.
and they have, and some, people need to be warm and they need to cook their food. And so these are really important people, but you cannot offer them that flexibility
Mhm.
that other jobs do. So what can you do? You can allow them to have flexibility and do their paperwork maybe from home or from a Starbucks or from anywhere they so choose. Really, flexibility equals freedom of choice. And what does that mean to the person in the job? So ask them what it means.
Mhm.
And conversely, you have people in the office, right?
Mhm.
If you are um, demanding people return to the office just because you don't know how to manage them, remotely, knock it off. I
Mhm.
cannot be more firm on that
Mhm.
because there are the jobs report that came out for December. There's 8.8 million open jobs in the United States of America, and only about 6.3 job seekers to fulfill them. So the flexibility needs to be met in every single position. And I know it's hard, but slow down and ask your people what flexibility means to them. You could be surprised. Somebody could say, well, I really would like to just have Wednesday to work from home.
Mhm.
Okay. And it doesn't all have to be the same.
Mhm.
And I encourage, if you're working with HR people who are like, well, everybody must be treated the same, I'm going to call BS on
Mhm.
that, HR people, because they don't. People have different jobs, people have different skills, they have different responsibilities.
Mhm.
Sameness isn't fairness. Knock that stuff off.
Mhm.
There's a woman I worked with who I love. She's retired now. Her name is Tamara Bray. She's quoted in the book, I think, that you talked about, Freddie. She worked for DCP Midstream, which was just subsequently acquired by a big, ginormous company. And she said, people are complaining about managing people remotely. How is that different than managing people in diverse geographies?
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think people are just making it up because it's different and it's pissing them off. So, relax already. Just meet people where they need to be met. Sameness is not fairness. Ask your people what they want. You may be surprised. It could be a little thing. Could I have 2 more days off a year? Could I work from home when it's cold or when my kids don't have school? Or could I just be an adult and decide where I need to be and get my work done? And if I'm performing, do you care where I do it?
Right.
Why should you? Sorry, I went off on a riff there,
No,
but
it's
good
all
for
No,
you.
but
right.
I love that. I mean, it resonates so much with
Yes.
the type of employee, certainly for me, that I want to work with, but I also
Yeah,
want on my team. I always say, if you need me in that level of micromanagement, this is not the place for you. And I am not the manager for you, because I want you to thrive and do your thing and be so successful, and then check in. And if you need support
Mhm.
and you need assistance, I'm your girl. But if we have to be, the jobs that we're working with are not punching a clock. They're not working on a manufacturing line doing a thing, which are all very critical jobs, but that's not what we're talking about. and the ability to identify. I love the sameness is not fairness. I love that.
Yeah. It is so important. And, Bridget, it goes to selection. So if you have jobs where you need someone who's an independent thinker
Mhm.
and independently responsible, there are really inexpensive assessments you can use that, will help you ascertain how independent the person really is.
Mhm.
Like if you did an assessment on me, I'm ridiculously independent. Like, do not try to tell me what to do. But there are some people who are like, I need you to tell me everything.
Mhm.
And Bridget, they would drive you nuts.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
And that's okay.
Mhm.
You get to select the people who won't drive you nuts.
Mhm.
Well, I also think from my perspective, for part of leadership, and I love an assessment. I love them. I love all of them. Because
Good
I
girl.
think, while that hyper analytical person would normally drive me bananas, if I know that about you, right, I can
Right.
set some boundaries up. And I've had these conflicts as I've matured in my career. It used to make me crazy, like a
Yeah.
crazy person. If you ask someone to do something and they come back with 52 questions,
Oh,
I'm like, okay, how about this? What are your top 5 questions that you need to get off the ball? Right.
yeah.
And then you got to do it. And then come back with what you have. But prior to really understanding that personality type and my own, I make those people as equally as crazy as they make me. Right. But
Yeah.
now I see value in that. Like, oh, okay, I get it. I get you need this within
Yeah.
reason. You
Yeah.
need a few things answered to do your
Right.
job. And then, okay,
Mhm.
now I'm good. But let's limit it to 5. 482 questions is not within the boundary.
And isn't it fun when you realize you drive people crazy too?
Mhm.
Yeah.
When you finally have this realization, oh, we're all trying to be
Mhm.
human. We're all different, and we all have these little picadillos or idiosyncrasies that drive each other nuts.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
can we just laugh about it
Yes.
versus fighting about it?
We did
There-
an organizational assessment a couple years ago, and it was interesting to see how, certain things were just very obvious, right? But across our organization, the one common denominator was an insanely high sense of responsibility,
Yeah,
which was
good.
so nice to see, because how you get there is a little bit different, but
Mhm.
you do all have that commonality of an insanely high requirement and need for a sense of responsibility. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
I,
and it's funny too. I can just picture everyone that just watched that last 2 or 3 minutes going, "So we're not alone." Like, so this is a great spot, Kathleen, because I know you have so many valuable resources online. Do you mind sharing with the listeners and the viewers right now where they can get some of this help? Because I'm sure that the last 19 minutes they're listening to this saying, it sounds like we might need some assessment program. We might need some input
Sure.
of how we can work better as a team. We need to work on our dynamics of our company. Just a quick insert since you're our guest. Where can they find some of this information?
Well, certainly they're welcome to contact me at, I have a website, 2 of them, KathleenQuinnVotaw.com and TalentTrust, one T in the middle.com. And you can always find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Perfect.
But there's 2 really, from an assessment perspective, there's 2 companies I really like. One is called Preview, Pre, capital VUE, and it's a simple assessment in layman's terms that you can follow and interpret. And they have a suite of assessments. It's really easy and cost effective that will help you with selection and what Bridget was talking about we're insanely responsible. Finding those key attributes that you hold dear in your organization. And if somebody's insanely responsible, they're probably going to do really well here.
Mhm.
And that's a good thing. And then there's another company called Profiles International, which is a Wiley company. And they have a even bigger suite of services. They're more well known, they're a little more expensive, but they have really good science. Both have great science behind their assessments, and they have really good people who can help you interpret. Certainly we can too, but you can do it on your own. But it's just those are really some great resources.
Mhm.
And then there are some assessments that are just they go overboard. It
Yeah.
like takes 5 hours and there's a 15-page report. And I'm talking to people in the propane industry, and you're not going to do that, right?
Yeah.
So, so keep it simple. The KISS principle. Keep it simple. Don't over engineer these things. Don't be sold by someone who's going to try to sell you something with all these bells and whistles. Do something different. Assess your current team so you can select better people to come on board. So those are some good tools, Freddie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we have a lot of different listeners. We have corporate companies, and we all the way down to very small propane operations. It's great for everyone to do this assessment program, whether you
Absolutely.
have 5 staff or 500.
I agree. And it's easier, Freddie, when you start small.
Mm-hmm.
The smaller you are, you're in an advantageous situation because you're building the foundation.
Yeah.
It gets much more cray. And we work with a company like DCP had 20,000 employees.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
So you had to take little pockets
Yep.
and work slowly. But the smaller you are, you build this foundation of trust and commonality, and then they're building blocks.
Mhm.
So I even think I think it's important for everybody, but I love it when, small and mid-sized businesses hook into, some formula here and start being more predictive in selection, also in managing people, and having those really fierce, honest, kind, open conversations with the people who are serving their customers.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just simple to me, but I
Right.
know people struggle with it.
For
Mm-hmm.
sure. Well, I think that one of the questions that we have that I would be interested in your feedback, because I think there's a lot of risk in leadership, right? And a
Mm.
lot of risk in having that open and transparent conversation, right? Both for both sides. It's risky for the employee to be that transparent with their manager or boss, whoever it is, and it's risky oftentimes, I think, for the organization to be very transparent. How do you advise people to mitigate that risk a little bit?
Well, with transparency comes trust,
Mm-hmm.
and trust is the foundation of every organization. And if you don't have trust, you're not going to be able to build.
Mm-hmm.
So think of your personal relationships. If people withheld information from you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that would be problematic
Mm-hmm.
in your personal relationships, right? We tend to mess it up when we cross the threshold at work.
Mm-hmm.
We become different people. We become the boss and the employee, where we're really human beings serving each other and working together for common good. So we kind of screw it up. My book, Dare to Care in the Workplace, helps people unscrew it up just a little bit. And your business relationships are human relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have trust, you cannot build from
Mhm.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't trust you, I'm never going to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm always going to get you. I'm always going to get you. Whether I'm the boss or the employee, it's a get you relationship. We just had a young woman leave our organization, great gal. And, she's very new in her journey, right? And she just unceremoniously resigned. We have never had that in our
Mhm.
company. Usually we have a conversation, what's going on? Are you happy, not happy? And then we create a path to either exit or, a different position.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little shocking to our system. And basically her parents told her not to tell us the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just on a, hey, if you're unhappy, just go look for another job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, no.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just on a Fox News affiliate in Kansas City. And my first advice, if anybody's looking for a new job or disgruntled in their position, right? Here's your first step. Talk to your current employer. Because I know, radical. Whoa, wait a minute. Whoa. What if, what if you could say, hey, Freddie, I'm not really feeling successful in my position. And I would love your help, achieving some of my, personal and professional objectives.
hmm
I'm just not feeling successful. And I'm having a tough time here. I'm having a tough time there. What can we do to get me on a path of feeling more successful?
Mhm.
And Freddie is an inspired leader with his little turtle. Um, and because that's turtles are heart animals. And I swim with them. I'm city with them. So he's a groovy manager, and he makes the time to understand where I'm struggling, where I actually find joy, and he tries to create a path where I can have more joy and more success every day in my job. Wow, my next best great position could be with my current employer. But if I don't have that conversation, I'll never know. Think of how disruptive it is to change jobs.
Mhm.
hmm
Have you guys ever changed a job?
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
not
Yes.
easy, right?
Right.
You have to talk to your people, your
Mhm.
people at home. They get all crazy and whack-a-doo-doo about the change.
Mhm.
And then, what about the kids and the house and where we're going to live and what's going to go on? And oh my God, we got a good thing going. Why are you disrupting our lives?
hmm
That's the home conversation.
Mhm.
And then you go to work and you have to fake it till you make it because you're cheating on them for 3 to 6 months trying to find another job. And you probably don't feel good
Mhm.
because you're nice people, right? And you're put in a position to lie.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel good either.
Right.
So hey, if somebody came to you tomorrow and you're in leadership roles and said, "I'm not feeling successful. How can I feel more successful here?" Isn't that a nice
Mhm.
conversation?
hmm
Sure.
So we can't keep, as employees, we can't keep blaming the boss for everything if we don't tell the boss what we need.
Mhm.
hmm
The responsibility on the employee, because I can't give you what you need. Like the young woman who just left, I love her. I wish her the best. But you know what? I couldn't help her because she didn't even speak up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But hey, it's okay.
Mhm.
God bless. Move
Yeah.
on.
Right.
Not mad. Just do what you need to do. But
Right.
it would change our environments if
Mhm.
we had those, if we could start with trust.
hmm
And
Mhm.
I trust you not to fire me just because I tell you I don't feel successful.
Mhm. Well, you're so much better off. I mean, the effort and cost that goes into replacing an employee
Right.
is astronomical. And you would
hmm
want, I think there's the kind, I would imagine a lot of people listening to this from our industry are thinking, well, we can't be everything to everyone. We can't do all of that. But I think if you go back to your original the original conversation about sameness is not fairness,
Right.
these conversations, just because somebody says, I don't feel successful, doesn't mean you have to create a whole new job that
Yeah.
doesn't exist. Let's have a
Right.
conversation about what it means for you as an individual, not restructuring the entire organization.
Exactly, Bridget. And so let's go back to the guy or gal driving the truck,
Mhm.
right? Maybe it's, hey, I'm driving a truck today, but what can I learn in the next 90 days?
Mhm.
So can I learn something? Will you teach me something else? I like to learn. There's a great guy. His name is Ken Rusk. He wrote a book called, and it'll come to me in a minute because um, Blue Collar Cash. Ken Rusk, Blue Collar Cash. And I think everybody in the propane industry should read that book. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Mhm.
Lovely guy. He's a ditch digger. Basically, he's an excavator. He's your people,
hmm
and he maintains that if you can teach somebody or help them achieve their life goals and dreams, then you're going to have a great retention in your organization. Right. So it requires you as leaders to know your people and what they want. So it's opening up, it's that transparency of Who are you, Freddie? What do you want?
Mm-hmm.
What are your goals in life, dude? I
Mm-hmm.
want to help you achieve those.
Mm-hmm.
And you might want to be a singer on The Voice. Who knows? But whatever somebody's goals are, if we as leaders can help them achieve some of that, that's where the magic happens. And that's where the reward comes back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to ask a question, and I'll tell you why. I want to know what inspires you, Kathleen, because in your role, you have to be so energetic and positive and find the answers. Because if I'm having you come to my office to help build this program, this diversity, this better workplace, you have to come in already knowing there could be essentially a problem.
Oh, yeah.
So what inspires you to do what you do?
Well, that's a great question, Freddie. I believe in human kindness, and I have a lot of faith in God and in people and in our world. I also have survived cancer one time, and I am fighting it again now. And so every single day that we have on this earth is a gift, and every single person we get to have time with is a gift. And so I am just inspired by humans and what they want to achieve and what they have achieved, what they can achieve. And I believe in us. I just do. And I know, even though there's a lot of uncertainty right now in January of 2024, I believe that we will get through it and we will be stronger and better on the other side. I just believe in us.
That's
I could just
wonderful.
finish a podcast with that.
Oh, I was telling Freddie earlier, I feel a little bit selfish in these podcasts that oftentimes it feels like a therapy session for me. Right? This just wealth of information that's shared with us. And I walk away thinking, God, I could talk to that person for another 3 hours
I
today.
know.
So we appreciate that was wonderful.
It was.
Great. We'd
Thank
all learn
you.
from that for sure.
Yep.
Thank
All right, Freddie, let's do it.
All right, let's go. Thank you, Kathleen, for the first part of the podcast. We appreciate it. Now we're gonna have a little bit of fun. We call this the
Okay.
whip round, where we're just gonna fire off some questions and whatever that comes to mind, first thing comes to mind, answer it. We're not gonna grade you on this. Don't worry, there's no test.
Okay.
So I'm gonna let Bridget kick it off. The whip
Yeah,
round.
I'm going to go with my favorite question. What do you keep in the trunk of your car?
Blankets.
Okay.
Lots of them. A basket of blankets.
Okay.
Kat, that's great. Some people have all sorts of stuff, but just blankets. Do you quilt or sew or anything, or are they like just blankets from your house? Just throw them in the trunk?
Hockey rings,
Got it.
going on picnics.
Okay.
You always need something to sit on.
Yeah.
I'm ready a village to get together and sit on something.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, if you're ever in Minnesota, I'm stranded on the road, I know who to call.
Yeah, right.
Yes, exactly.
So, Kathleen, if you could go back to your 16-year-old self, what advice would you give that 16-year-old Kathleen?
Don't kiss as many boys.
Sound advice for all ages.
Yes.
Sound advice. All right. What would, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Superpower. I think my superpower, I would want to be able to be like Bewitched and do my nose and grant wishes everywhere.
Love it. Giving back. I like that. Kathleen, when you're alone in your car or in your work study, what do you think about?
Oh, God, everything. I pray, I sing, I talk to my mother.
I love it.
Those are the things I do in my car.
Yeah.
Love
That's
it.
great. Can you describe yourself in one word?
Hilarious.
I
love it.
don't know, it just made me laugh.
It completely, it's like, it's just silly. I mean, really, it's silly.
So this you already wrote a book, so I'm curious to see what you think about this. But if you wrote a book about your life, what would the title be?
Oh, wow. It's not for the likes of us. It's actually in my mind because I'm authored two books, Freddie. One called Solve the People Puzzle, the other called Dare to Care in the Workplace.
Perfect.
And so I was raised by two beautiful people. My dad was an Irish immigrant. He's in heaven now. My mother is a first generation American from Irish descent, and my mom. They were both raised very not to want too much.
Mm.
And my mom's mother and father used to tell her that it wasn't for the likes of her. Like if she wanted to go to the movie theater, that's not for the likes of us. Our kind of people, working class people, we don't go to the movie theater. We don't have things like that. It's going to college wasn't for the likes of us. So the book would be about it is for the likes of us.
Mm-hmm.
You can have anything you want. Don't limit your dreams.
That's great.
So that's a book that I'm marinating on.
See, here we go. Now I want to have an hour and a half conversation just about that. Here is the blessing and the curse.
I can come back.
We're going to. We're doing it. Okay, my last question is describe your ideal vacation.
Oh, scuba diving. I'm not kidding. A month in Bonaire with the turtles.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Let's do it.
Yes.
I'll meet you there. Let me know when we're doing it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Well, Kathleen, thank you so much. Again, Kathleen Quinn Votaw, the founder and CEO of Talent Trust. You can read more about all this information from her website, talenttrust.com, 1T. We'll have our podcast. I believe the podcast is going out sometime in May of 2024. So look forward to that. Any questions, reach out to her. She gave you her email address. Kathleen, thank you so much for being on our Women in Propane podcast through the leadership lens. I really know people will gain something from this one. It was a really treat to have you on board.
It was. This
Thank
was
you,
fantastic.
Freddie. Thank you, Bridget. It was a wonderful half hour with both of you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
This has been another episode of Through the Leadership Lens presented by Women in Propane. Be sure to subscribe, download, and share with a friend. To learn more about Women in Propane, visit us on Facebook, Instagram, or online at www.womeninpropane.org. I'm Freddie Riddler.
And I'm Bridget Kidd. Thanks for listening. Until next time.